The sky hangs low, heavy and unmoving, as if it remembers the weight of what happened here. There's a hush in the air, thicker than silence, almost sacred. The kind of stillness that clings to the skin, as if the world itself is holding its breath. I arrive not as a visitor, but as something else, an observer, drifting through centuries. The path beneath my feet is uneven, made of dark basalt stones, worn down by countless steps long vanished into time. Each one seems to remember the press of ancient sandals, the weight of forgotten errands, the shuffle of life. The scent that greets me is dry and faintly metallic. It mingles with sulfur and dust, the ghost of heat and catastrophe. Ash, not fresh, not pungent, but old, settled, content to be forgotten. It seeps from the cracks, drapes over the ruins like a second skin. Pompeii does not greet you. It does not perform. It waits. To my right, a crumbling wall opens like a wound, revealing a sliver of painted mural. A phoenix, perhaps, or a dancer mid-spin, rendered in shades of red and ochre that have resisted the fading hand of time. I run my fingers close, never touching, feeling the warmth of sun-baked stone, the ghost of human intention in every brushstroke. There's no grand gate, no banner proclaiming this place a city of legend, just alleyways frozen, doorways open, windows staring. Every detail sits in place like an unfinished sentence, the kind one dares not complete. I pass a column, its grooves smooth where ancient hands once leaned. A patch of mosaic glints beneath collapsed timber, each tessera no larger than a fingernail. It forms part of a forgotten floor, perhaps from a bathhouse or a garden patio. I imagine water once flowed here, catching sunlight as laughter echoed through the atrium. Now, all that remains is the whisper of wind through empty corridors. The breeze is dry, carrying no pollen, no salt, only memory. The street ahead stretches like a spine, straight and unwavering, flanked by the broken remains of storefronts, courtyards, homes. There's no barrier between public and private anymore. Intimacy has been laid bare. I pause at what must have been a bakery. A stone oven sits cold, open, like a yawning mouth. Scorched grain still lingers in the cracks. I wonder, did the baker look back before fleeing? Or did he never get the chance? A child's toy, small and half-formed, lies nearby. Its wooden frame long gone, only its shape hinted at in the cavity left behind. Time here has not eroded so much as it has entombed. A low wall reveals a faded inscription. Latin letters, still legible, proclaim something mundane, perhaps a merchant's ad or a political endorsement. The ink of life paused mid-sentence. My steps carry me past public fountains now dry, their marble basins cracked but dignified. Once, water splashed here in cool arcs, washing dusty feet, filling jars, catching sunlight. Now, silence pools where water once danced. To the left, a doorway stands half-collapsed, offering a glimpse into a courtyard garden. Its symmetry broken, its plants long since devoured by ash. Still, The soil breathes faint life. Small weeds, uninvited and patient, push through cracks. A fresco decorates one wall, Venus rising from the sea. She floats eternally, her gaze soft, unbothered by the weight of centuries. Her pigments, ochre, lapis, rust, remain intact, a defiant whisper against decay. I stand still, listening, not for voices, but for the way the wind curls around these shapes, the way absence shapes presence. In Pompeii, the architecture is not only stone, it is void, it is pause, it is the echo of what should still be. Far off, a low rumble, not the mountain, just memory shifting underfoot. Still, the shadow of Vesuvius looms, massive and patient, as if waiting for a reason to speak again. I look up. The clouds stretch thin, veined like marble. The air tastes of minerals, of things buried too long. Pompeii is not ruins. It is a breath held. Each corner I turn reveals new stillness. The shell of a villa, its columns fractured but upright, holding nothing but time. The vestibule, once lined with candles or oils, now holds dust. And yet, there's dignity in the decay, grace in the surrender. I move carefully, reverently, as if my presence might awaken something slumbering beneath the ash. And still, the mosaic floors greet me, spirals, beasts, masks, gods. Each tile a word in a language of beauty. I walk beside them, not over them. They are too precise, too intimate. I imagine the artisans hunched in sunlight, placing each stone with intention, never knowing they were building for eternity. The wind shifts, a faint sound like fabric being drawn through fingers, drifts through an archway. Perhaps it is only the air itself brushing past memory. Or perhaps something lingers. I find myself at the edge of a small atrium. The impluvium, once collecting rainwater, now gathers shadows. Above, the open sky watches. The space feels alive in its stillness, suspended. Will these stones ever forget the shape of laughter? I do not speak aloud. This is not a place for words. Pompeii listens. She remembers. I leave no footprints, not because I float, but because the city refuses to acknowledge time. She does not let you mark her. She marks you. Far in the distance, the outline of the amphitheater curves against the horizon, silent, massive, expectant. But that is for later. Now, only this street, this moment, this hush. Pompeii is breathing through ash, through stone, through every space left empty by fire and time. I am not alone here. I am among witnesses. And the mountain still watches. The basalt beneath my feet is worn smooth by centuries of forgotten footsteps. It holds the imprints of 1,000 ordinary mornings. Bread runs, hurried greetings, quiet walks under the sun. Even now, as I glide across it, I feel the quiet resilience of a city that once refused to vanish completely. Each stone is shaped not only by hands, but by habits, intentional, practiced, placed not in haste, but with a deliberate rhythm, the kind that builds a world one square at a time. These streets were meant to carry the weight of daily life, and still they carry something, the memory of motion. The groove of cartwheels is still visible, two parallel ruts in the stone, deep and unwavering, tell of goods transported, deliveries made, paths repeated over years until the earth itself remembered. I trace them with my eyes, imagining the wooden wheels creaking, the low rumble echoing between buildings. Some intersections remain raised, their pedestrian stones jutting up like stepping islands. I step across them carefully. Once they kept feet dry during floods. Now they bridge two halves of time, the living and the lost. To my right, the sidewalk narrows. It hugs a facade of crumbled plaster and bare brick. Yet, even in ruin, the design remains clear, a pattern of openness and shadow. Windows alternate with niches, some decorated with fragments of fresco. One depicts a cornucopia spilling over with fruit, abundant and bright, a promise of prosperity that the city could not keep. I pause to press my palm lightly against the wall. The texture is rough, but not cold. Stone, even after centuries, retains warmth from the sun. There's something alive in it, as if it remembers the touch of builders and the murmur of voices. Ahead, I glimpse the outline of a small taberna, what we might now call a street cafe or tavern. Its open counter still stands, a slab of marble with embedded clay jars, once filled with wine or olives or lentils.
The jars are empty, but their mouths remain open, as if still waiting to serve. I imagine the conversations that happened here, quick trades, gossip shared between bites, laughter spilling out into the morning. Did they speak of the mountain, then so benign on the horizon? Did they fear it? No one seems to have rushed. Pompeii feels like a city where time stretched slowly, where people lingered. Even the streets seem to invite strolling more than marching. Overhead, the sky shifts subtly. The light softens. Shadows grow long across the basalt, their angles precise, sculpted by the ancient cityscape. Columns rise ahead, fluted and fractured, casting lines like sundials against the path. The architecture flows with purpose. Nothing feels accidental. Doorways align, corners curve. Even in ruin, the layout speaks of order, of vision, of a people who built not just for function, but for feeling. Further on, I encounter a small fountain embedded in a wall. Once it would have offered cool water to thirsty travelers. Now its spout is dry. But beneath it, a relief of Neptune remains intact, his eyes calm, his trident firm, as if still guarding the city's lifeblood. I kneel, place my hand where the water might have fallen. The marble is eroded smooth. So many hands over so many years. It humbles me. The street widens into a plaza. Here, the stones are flatter, broader. Footsteps echo. I let the rhythm of my movement slow. There is no need to hurry. The city has waited 2,000 years. I can give it a few more minutes. To the left, ivy curls around a fallen lintel. It clings gently, not overtaking, but embracing. Nature does not conquer here. It mourns alongside. Children once played here. Lovers once lingered. A dog may have curled in the sun, waiting for its master. And all of it is somehow still here, in the silence, in the stillness. A gust of wind stirs the dust. It moves in small spirals, dancing along the basalt. The street responds, not with sound, but with memory. It holds echoes deeper than words. Here, even silence has a voice. And so I walk on. The stones receive me, unchanged. I pass by a home, its entrance framed by broken lintels, its threshold worn by generations. Inside, the floor still hints at colored mosaic patterns, geometry and flowers once vibrant. The walls are bare now, but their surface shows signs of having once been painted. Layers of lime and pigment peeling like old skin, exposing stories beneath. A column lies fractured in 3 pieces across the path. I step over it, noting how the break is clean. Perhaps it fell suddenly. Perhaps it bent in surrender. A little further, another taberna. This one has an inscription etched on the plaster, partly legible, partly worn away. I make out names, possibly a menu, possibly a plea. The script loops and dips like a soft chant from the past. To my left, a collection of stepping stones arcs over a sunken road. I cross carefully. Below, the grooves left by carts create patterns in the basalt, rhythms of life engraved into earth. Water used to run down these channels, guided by slight slopes crafted with astonishing precision. At the corner, a drain carved in stone still waits for rain. I pause. The silence deepens. A scent, like dry herbs and warm minerals, floats in the air. It reminds me of old libraries, of cellars filled with clay jars, of time distilled into smell. A bench stands beneath a fig tree, now half wild, roots curling around ancient paving. I sit, letting the stone cool me through fabric. Across the street, a collapsed roof exposes the ribs of a house, beams now skeletal under the open sky. And above it all, always, the mountain. The basalt speaks in textures, in pressure, in stillness. Its language is slow and certain. It does not rush to reveal. It simply holds. I rise, stepping again onto the path. Pompeii's streets are not empty. They are filled with everything they have seen. They lie beneath dust and silence. Mosaics not forgotten, but paused. Some remain whole, pristine in defiance. Others fractured, peer through layers of ash like memories breaking the surface of sleep. I tread lightly here, not from fear, but reverence. Each fragment is a sentence, each design a whisper. The first mosaic reveals itself beneath a fallen lintel, where light filters in like water through reeds. It depicts a hunting scene. Lean dogs caught mid-leap, their eyes fierce and fixed. A stag, muscles tense, suspended in the moment before flight. The tension is frozen, eternal. It is not just a record of action, it is the breath between intention and motion, a silent heartbeat of Pompeii's past. I kneel beside it. The tesserae, those tiny pieces of colored stone, are arranged with such care that even now, millennia later, they hold life. Ochre and rust, deep cobalt, faded green. No larger than fingernails, yet they pulse with energy. I do not touch, but I trace their shapes in the air, as though decoding the rhythm of forgotten hands. This was more than decoration. These were stories told without ink. Beneath bare feet, they carried memory. Beneath candlelight, they shimmered. beneath silence, they endure. Further along, I find geometry, hypnotic spirals and precise borders, circles held within squares, interlocking waves that ripple like sound. The design invites stillness, coaxing the eye to follow the motion until the world beyond disappears. Perhaps that was its purpose, to anchor the mind within the moment, to offer a kind of still meditation. A floor of black and white checks rests in a collapsed peristyle. Each square holds contrast, light and dark, presence and absence. I wonder what it witnessed. Did laughter echo off these stones? Did sandals scrape across them at dawn? Or was there quiet, a garden perhaps beside it, the perfume of myrtle and laurel drifting on warm air? In a side chamber, I find dolphins. One leaps above an anchor, its body curved in joyous motion. Coral surrounds it, rendered in crimson and ivory. The sea has been made permanent here, fossilized in pigment. Maybe the homeowner loved the coast. Maybe he traded in salt or oil. Or maybe he simply dreamed of distant shores while seated beneath this very ceiling. The intimacy of these floors is what stays with me. They were not made for distant admiration. They were walked on, cried on, lived with. They bore witness to the mundane and the divine. Morning routines, festival preparations, whispered arguments. And in silence, they continue to speak. I stop before a larger, grander mosaic. It stretches across what must have been a formal receiving room. Alexander the Great, eyes fixed forward, rides into battle. His cloak billows behind him, a red flame against the chaos. The craftsmanship here is extraordinary. The tesserae are smaller than seeds. From a distance, the image looks painted. Up close, it humbles. He charges forward forever. His soldiers follow, locked in position by fire and ash. Horses rear, weapons gleam, faces twist with fear and resolve. But there is no sound, only presence. This was no ordinary home. This was influence declared in stone. Perhaps a magistrate lived here, perhaps a general. Whoever commissioned this work wanted their world reflected in grandeur. And yet, what remains is silence. The war is over. Only the image endures. Outside, sunlight shifts. It catches on the floor, causing the patterns to glow. Shadows fall between the stones like words between sentences. Time softens around me. In another room, I find a mosaic of theatrical masks. Comedy grins beside tragedy. The faces are exaggerated, yet familiar. I think of the performances that once played in Pompeii's theaters. The roar of crowds, the hush before a monologue. Art within art. Life mimicking itself. Even the smallest mosaics carry weight. Near a doorway, a simple border of ivy curls along the floor. It is quiet, almost hidden, yet it grounds the room. It reminds me that even the unnoticed was crafted with care. A breeze enters, lifting a thread of dust. It settles again, as if not to disturb the dolphins, the warriors, the ivy leaves. Even nature moves softly here. I pause to imagine the mosaicists, their tools, their posture, their patience. Bending over stone day after day, placing beauty into the earth. Did they know their work would last beyond empire, beyond language, beyond fire? One name is scratched faintly into a corner,
A signature, perhaps, or a tribute. The letters are simple, unassuming, but to me, they resonate louder than marble columns or bronze statues. Here, someone chose to leave their mark, not for glory, but for continuity. The silence deepens. The mosaics begin to blur slightly in the shifting light. Not fade, just soften, as if preparing to rest again. I take one last look at the hunting dogs, their chase unfinished, their eyes still bright. I rise, stepping carefully away. Mosaics do not beg to be remembered, they remember you. And Pompeii remembers everything. The baths of Pompeii stand quiet now, their stone chambers hollowed by centuries. But step inside and you'll feel it. The air shifts. It cools, not from breeze or shade, but from memory. The heat is gone, but the echo remains. I move through the entrance slowly, as if the silence might be broken by the sound of sandals. The floor is worn smooth, the stone polished not by tools, but by time and feet and steam. In this place, rituals of cleanliness became ceremonies of presence. The apoditarium, once a place of disrobing, greets me first. Niches carved into the walls still hold their shape, once used for cloaks, sandals, bracelets. Now they are hollow eyes watching. The plaster is faded, but in one curve of the wall, the paint still clings, red and amber tones forming the faint outline of a satyr mid-dance. Even here, beauty was stitched into utility. I imagined the rustle of cloth, the murmur of greetings, a father's voice guiding his son, the rhythmic splash of water from deeper within. These sounds do not return in full, but fragments surface like steam from invisible pools. Beyond, the tepidarium, the warm room. The ceiling arches overhead like a protective shell, once dark with condensation. Its walls curve inward, still beaded with mineral traces. The benches are intact. I sit, closing my eyes, breathing in the stone. This was not just a bathhouse, it was a sanctuary. Here bodies softened, thoughts slowed, community gathered. Stories flowed like water. There is a sacred hush embedded in the walls. On the floor, a mosaic remains. A fish, stylized and silver blue, swimming beside a sea nymph. It is small, almost easy to overlook, but deliberate. The artist placed it where eyes would drift while muscles relaxed. Beauty not for admiration, but for intimacy. I move to the caldarium, the hot room. The sun slips through a high window, illuminating the apse like a spotlight. The marble tub is dry, its rim stained with ghostly rings. I run my hand along its edge. Smooth, cool now. But once it held heat and laughter and release. Here, heat would have pressed against skin like breath. Voices echoed off damp ceilings. And beneath it all, the quiet percussion of dripping water, of warmth pooling into tired limbs. The furnace that fed this chamber is long extinguished, but its opening still gapes, blackened. I peer inside, half expecting to see embers. Instead, only hollow stone, the heart of the bathhouse stilled. I imagine the workers who stoked the fire, their routines, the precision of temperature, the hidden labor that made relaxation possible for others. In one corner, a small basin, possibly for cooling. Water would have trickled here gently, offering relief. Even now, the basin holds a thin layer of condensation. I touch it with 2 fingers. It's real, present. Time, it seems, cannot erase everything. The frigidarium comes last, the cold room. Here, the air grows sharper. The basin is sunken, the stone paler, smoother. It gleams faintly in the dim light. A single shaft of sun cuts across the space, touching the water's ghost. This room was a final exhale, a return to clarity. I imagine the shiver, the intake of breath, the laughter, the silence afterward when warmth and cold met in balance. In a niche, a faint carving, a nymph pouring water from a vessel. Her outline is nearly gone, but her gesture remains. Eternal offering. The baths of Pompeii were more than hygiene. They were communion. They were rhythm. A place where citizens met without titles, where merchants and philosophers shared space, where quiet was as valued as conversation. I pause at the exit. The floor slopes slightly, a channel for runoff carved along its edge. Even the water here was given a path, thoughtfulness in every detail. Outside, the sun warms my shoulders, but I carry with me the cool hush of the baths, a silence so dense it feels like sound inverted. Pompeii does not forget where warmth once gathered. The house of the tragic poet stands in the quiet part of the city, tucked away from the main roads, its presence unassuming. Yet what waits inside is anything but ordinary. I pass through its narrow entrance, where the light narrows to a stripe across the threshold. I do not enter like a guest. I enter like a breath. The first thing that greets me is a warning. Cave canem, beware of the dog. The mosaic sprawls just beyond the doorway. A lean black hound, teeth bared, body taut in motion. Even now it startles, not for its threat, but for its immediacy. 2,000 years old, yet the dog still guards the home. I pause, not out of fear, but respect. Its tesserae are small, dark, precise. There's tension in every curve of its back, every raised claw. Whoever crafted it knew how to trap motion in stillness. And behind it, beyond the threshold, lies one of Pompeii's most eloquent houses. The atrium opens with light from above, a central impluvium still intact, bordered by marble edges. A square of sky hovers over water long vanished. The walls rise high and red. Fragments of frescoes still cling, mythological scenes, gods in repose, mortals in sorrow. Stories flicker in ochre and rust. A scene from the Iliad spans one panel, Achilles handing over Hector's body. The moment is tender, not triumphant. In this home, even war bends to humanity. This is no random decoration. It is intention. The owner of this house chose myth as mirror, tragedy as identity. I move slowly from room to room. Each space is modest, yet rich in narrative. The peristyle garden still holds the memory of green. Though no vines remain, the air carries their echo. Columns circle the open courtyard, simple and worn, but dignified. A statue base stands empty in the center,
Perhaps it held a nymph, perhaps a poet, perhaps a silence so complete even the birds listened. To my left, a triclinium dining room. Faint remnants of painted grapes climb the walls. Once voices filled this space. The clink of bowls, the hum of song. I can almost hear it, carried by the architecture's memory. On the floor, another mosaic, this one quieter. A theater mask lies beside a scroll. Tragedy and knowledge offered like bread. There is no ostentation here. Everything is measured. Every element speaks softly, but precisely. The poetry of the house is architectural, line by line, room by room. I enter a cubiculum, a sleeping chamber, small, shadowed. The walls still pulse with pigment. A single figure reclines in a painted alcove. Perhaps Ariadne, asleep and dreaming of absence. Her face is soft, eyes half closed, as if sensing what is to come. Even in private spaces, this house offers reflection. A breeze moves through, carrying dust and something else, something like longing. The kind that clings to quiet corners, the kind that knows how to wait. Back in the atrium, I sit at the edge of the impluvium. I look up. The sky framed above is bluer here, as if even the air honors this place. I think of the poet. No name remains, but their spirit lingers in every brushstroke, every mosaic, every shadow that falls just right. They wrote not with ink, but with arrangement, with presence, with restraint. This house is not tragic because of loss. It is tragic because it understood beauty. In the corner of the tablinum, I find a tiny carving, a lyre etched into stone, faint, almost invisible, a detail not meant to be seen, not unless you're searching, but it sings when found. And I found it. The dog still waits at the door, eternal, alert, as if guarding not the house, but the soul of it. I step outside again. The sun has shifted. Shadows now fall long and deliberate. Pompeii breathes differently here, slower, deeper, as though this house, more than others, remembers what it meant to feel. And perhaps that's the truth of it. The poet never left. Their verses were never lost. They simply changed form. They do not shout. They do not demand. And yet they endure. The frescoes of Pompeii cling to the walls like breaths held too long, delicate, fragmented, fading, but not forgotten. They wait in the penumbra, in the spaces where light hesitates and shadow softens. I follow them as one might follow a trail of quiet voices. The house I enter is modest, but its walls are anything but silent. Immediately, color rises to greet me. Deep reds, burnished golds, the faint green of vine leaves curling through the pigment. The frescoes do not glow, they murmur. In the main hall, Venus reclines upon a seashell. Her body curves with serenity, her gaze turned just slightly to the side. Behind her, waves rendered in swirls of white and lapis suggest movement, though everything is still. I move closer, observing the fine lines that define her hand, the softness of her hair. She is not an ideal, she is a memory of beauty. These images were not painted in haste. They were layered. First the plaster, then the pigment,
applied while still wet so the wall itself would absorb the color and hold it forever, or so they hoped. I place my fingers near the surface. The texture is uneven, flaked in places, yet what remains is alive. I feel not just color, but presence, as though the painter has only just stepped away to mix another hue. The room darkens slightly as clouds pass overhead. In the shifting light, the fresco seems to breathe. In a side chamber, a Bacchic ritual unfolds. Silhouettes of dancers twist between painted columns. Their robes flow like water, their expressions fixed in a joy that edges toward frenzy. Grapevines snake along the border, dotted with clusters of amethyst-colored fruit. Wine and ecstasy frozen. The paint here has begun to peel in vertical striations like old bark. Time is visible, yet even in erosion there's grace, like something fading with dignity. Elsewhere, a painted bird perches on a branch, head tilted.
It watches the room in permanent curiosity. Next to it, a fig hangs low, near to ripening. The illusion of depth is striking. I resist the urge to reach out. These are not decorations. They are invitations to remember, to reflect, to feel. They were painted for people who would see them every day, who would pass them on their way to another room, who might stop to whisper or weep beneath them. Above one doorway, a mask gazes downward. Half in shadow, its expression unreadable. Tragedy or comedy, or perhaps both. The line between them, in Pompeii, is always thin. I find a narrow corridor where time has dimmed everything to burnt sienna and gray. But even here, a small garden scene survives. A fountain, a bird bath, 2 doves. Their outlines faint, their presence firm. This was meant to soothe, to hold a fragment of paradise indoors. What strikes me most is the humanity of it. These walls were not meant to impress strangers. They were made to comfort their owners, to create a world within a world, a controlled beauty, a private dream. I sit on a fallen bench along the edge of the triclinium. The frescoes around me blur softly, their edges no longer sharp, as if they too are growing tired. And yet, in the fading pigment, in the cracked plaster, in the places where the image has worn away entirely, there is still meaning. Absence becomes its own form of art. I look back at Venus. The wall has split just below her knee, the plaster jagged. But she continues to recline, undisturbed. Pompeii's frescoes do not cling to permanence. They whisper across time. Their beauty is not in preservation, but in persistence. I rise and step carefully from the chamber, the painted eyes of gods and mortals watching as I go. Behind me, the walls exhale. The colors settle back into stillness. And the stories, soft, sacred, continue to wait. They once sang. The fountains of Pompeii once filled the city with the music of falling water, light splashes in courtyards, steady trickles in public squares, gentle echoes from carved basins beneath the sun. Now they are still, and in that stillness another kind of sound emerges. I follow the streets where the water once ran. Stone channels line the roads, grooved and shallow, carved with precision. Their curves speak of planning, of a city tuned to flow. But there is no flow now, only dust.
only the faint whisper of breeze across empty troughs. At the intersection of two streets, a public fountain remains intact. The structure is simple: a block of stone, a curved lip worn smooth by time and use, a spout shaped like a lion's head. I approach slowly. His mouth is open, forever ready to pour. But there is no water to give. I lean in. A faint scent rises from the stone. Mineral, cool, like earth after a storm. I touch the edge of the basin. It is cold, even beneath the sun. Stillness holds a temperature of its own. Here, people once paused to fill vessels, to wash hands, to speak of weather and grain and children's games. The sound of laughter, of water splashing into clay pots, would have danced through this corner like light through leaves. Now, my footsteps echo instead. A child's footprint remains in a patch of hardened silt below the fountain. Small, distinct, preserved by chance. I place my hand beside it. For a moment, the city feels alive again. I continue. In the peristyle of a house nearby, a private fountain rests at the center of what was once a garden. The stone bowl is cracked, the pedestal tilts slightly. Ferns have grown in the crevices, soft and green. Nature remembers what water once taught. A fresco behind the fountain depicts a nymph pouring water from a jug into a pool, her form outlined in gentle blues. The paint is faded, but her expression is patient. She continues her task, even without water. I sit on a nearby ledge, listening.
The quiet here is thick, layered. At first, it feels like absence. But soon I hear the subtle presences, the breeze brushing through dry leaves, the hum of distant insects, the murmur of my own breath. Pompeii speaks in silence now. Farther on, I find a house with a more elaborate structure. A fountain framed by columns, its base tiled with fragments of colored glass and marble. Once this must have sparkled. A centerpiece. Perhaps guests gathered here at dusk, their voices softened by the sound of water spilling in rhythm. I close my eyes and try to summon the sound. At first, nothing. But then, something. The imagined cadence of water over stone. Not loud, but persistent. Enough to set the mind adrift. Enough to make the silence deeper when it fades. Pompeii's fountains do not mourn. They rest. In one garden, the outline of a channel still traces the path water once followed. Past a statue, around a planter, into a shallow pool. Even dry, it holds grace. Design does not vanish when function ends. A small figure lies beside the channel, a sculpted boy with a broken arm, once holding a fish or a jug. His face is intact. He smiles slightly, as if the water might return at any moment, as if the city has only paused for breath. The homes here were built around water, not only for use, but for peace. A trickling fountain was the heartbeat of the domus. It cooled the air, it soothed the mind, it invited reflection. Now they invite a different kind of reflection. I kneel beside one final basin. It is shallow, its rim chipped, but it holds a small pool of rainwater, caught just that morning.
I lean closer. The sky looks back at me from its surface, framed by the ruins. The sound is gone, but the purpose remains. Even in silence, the fountains of Pompeii remind me of the flow that once was, the pulse of the city, the rhythm of daily life, the beauty of movement turned into memory. I rise slowly, and as I walk away, I swear I hear it, a single drop, imagined or real, echoing in stone.
The Forum no longer pulses with footsteps, but it remembers how. I enter it from the east, passing beneath a fragment of arch that once framed the sky like a declaration. Before me, space opens, vast, symmetrical, commanding. Columns rise in staggered rows, some whole, some mere stumps. Together, they draw invisible lines that still organize the void. Once, this was Pompeii's heart. Here, merchants shouted prices, politicians gave speeches, lovers met at corners, children darted between robes. Statues towered, temples watched, and life unfolded in all its volume. Now, I hear only wind. But even the wind respects the geometry. It moves in corridors, follows the colonnades, rustles weeds growing between the paving stones. I follow it, letting its path guide mine. The ground is uneven beneath my feet, ancient stones smoothed by sandals and sun. Their surfaces shine slightly where traffic was once heaviest. I can see the wear patterns, the silent testimony of repetition. This city was lived in deeply. To my right, the Temple of Jupiter dominates the northern end. Its steps are wide, welcoming. I ascend slowly. From the top, the Forum stretches out like a scroll. Every ruin a letter, every shadow a pause. The volcano looms behind it all, quiet, colossal, unblinking. In the center of the square, a pedestal remains. Its statue is gone, but the imprint of hooves is still visible. Perhaps an emperor on horseback, or a general whose name is now lost. I imagine pigeons resting where laurels once crowned marble. Beyond, the Macellum, the market, sprawls in low foundations. I step inside. Counters still mark the stalls. Basins are carved into the stone, once filled with fish or fruit or fragrant oils. The scent is gone, but the shapes endure. I touch the edge of one basin. It's cool, still. I imagine the voices, the clatter of amphorae, the call of traders praising their goods. This was not only a place of exchange, it was a place of ritual, the ritual of living. In the southwest corner, the basilica stands, or what remains of it. Tall columns stripped of roof and ornament hold up the sky in suggestion. Once a court, once a space of justice, now a hall of echoes. I enter. The air is cooler inside. The acoustics remain. I speak a single word, salve. It bounces back to me softly, folding itself into the past. The basilica listens. It has always listened. There's beauty in the order here, the rhythm of pillars, the precision of space. Even ruined, it does not collapse into chaos. Its bones still know their posture. Light pours through gaps where ceilings used to be. It lands in perfect squares on the stone floor, casting temporary mosaics of gold and shadow. I move through them as one might move through memory, with care. Outside again, I stand near the Eumachia building. Its brick facade, though worn, retains grace.
Inside, traces of textile shops remain. This was the domain of the weavers, the dyers, the skilled labor of fabric and thread. The cloth is gone, but the silence drapes everything like linen. Voices rise in my mind, soft, layered, not ghosts, but echoes. The kind cities remember even when they fall asleep. The forum is quiet, but not empty. It holds presence in absence. Its silence is not void, it is reverence. I sit on the edge of a column base and watch the sky change above the stones. Clouds drift, light shifts, the day leans into afternoon. Pompeii's forum does not demand reflection, it allows it. And I, small among ruins, reflect. What does a place remember when its people are gone? Does it rehearse their footsteps, recite their names? Or does it simply wait for someone to listen? I rise. My shadow joins those already cast upon the paving stones. Briefly, I walk with them. And the forum watches. It always has.
I follow the stone path as it curves gently toward the hillside. The air here feels different, wider, lighter. Ahead, the semicircle of the large theater begins to reveal itself, cut directly into the slope. Even in ruin, it commands attention, like an actor who hasn't quite left the stage. I pause at the top of the cavea, the seating tiers. From here, the whole structure opens below me, concentric arcs of stone rising from the orchestra, weathered and chipped, but intact. I descend slowly, my steps soft against the ancient risers. Each level is wide enough for sitting, thinking, dreaming. The seats do not face outward, they face inward, toward story. Pompeii's theater is not a ruin. It is a breath held between acts. In the center of the orchestra, I stop. This would have been the eye of the performance, the meeting point of actor and audience, myth and memory. I stand where voices once rose, where gestures echoed against marble. My own voice stays silent, unwilling to interrupt. The stage building, though broken, still gestures upward. Its doorways are empty frames. Once, painted panels would have shifted here. Columns painted on wood, facades imagined into being. Comedy, tragedy, satire, all breathed through these arches. A single fluted column leans at an angle, like a question. Behind it, niches where statues once stood. Apollo, Dionysus, perhaps muses whose names we no longer speak. They're gone now, but their absence has weight. I sit at the edge of the orchestra and look up. The tiers stretch around me like arms. From this low point, the world narrows into a dome of sky and stone. Sound would have carried here, projected without effort. The architecture knew how to hold a voice. I imagine a performance. Masks painted in bold expression, gestures sharp against the sun. The crowd shifting, reacting, a joke passing from one end to the other like a spark, or a line of poetry falling heavy and still across every heart. Theater was not escape here, it was reflection, a mirror held gently toward life. In one corner, a stairway leads to the upper tiers. I climb it slowly, touching the handrail stone worn smooth by generations. From above, the full geometry becomes clear, the elegance of proportion, the embrace of curve. This was not built in haste. It was composed, like music, like verse. Far below, a vine has crept onto the stage. Its green leaves stretch confidently, curling around a cracked paving stone. Even now, nature wants to be part of the story. To the west, the smaller Odeon nestles in quieter shadow. I walk there next. It's more intimate, roofed once, perhaps, for acoustic perfection. Poets read here. Musicians played stringed instruments, their notes rising gently toward carved ceilings, now open to sky. The seats are lower, closer. Every word would have felt personal. On one wall, fragments of plaster remain, traces of painted panels in dusty gold. A delicate border, perhaps. Decoration not for grandeur, but for grace. I sit once more. Pompeii's theaters do not shout. They listen. Even empty, they seem to wait for performance, not from actors, but from time itself. A breeze moves across the upper levels. I close my eyes and hear it. Not wind, applause. Not dust, echoes. And I remember, art does not vanish. It lingers in form, in rhythm, in space shaped to hold presence. The stage is bare, but the audience remains. Every stone a memory, every silence a script. I descend for the last time, my steps steady, reverent. And behind me, the theater exhales. It has seen enough to know the story never ends. The Villa of the Mysteries waits on the outskirts of the city, removed, hushed, as if aware that what it holds must be approached with care. I walk the path that leads to its entrance. Vines climb low walls. The mountain looms in a background, its presence subtle but unmistakable. The sky feels heavier here, as though it too respects the threshold I am about to cross. The villa's outer walls are plain, almost reluctant to reveal what lies within. But once I step past the entryway, everything shifts. The light changes. It dims. The air cools. My footsteps echo on terracotta tiles. I am not simply entering a home. I am stepping into a chamber of memory and ritual. The corridor curves, and there it is, the fresco. A frieze, room length, life-sized. Red walls, deep as blood or dusk, stretch in both directions. And upon them, figures. Dancers, priestesses, initiates. They do not smile, they do not move, and yet I feel their gaze. This is the initiation chamber. The purpose still debated. Perhaps Dionysian rites, perhaps marriage rituals, perhaps something deeper. But meaning here is not linear. It unfolds in presence. I walk slowly along the frieze. To my left, a woman is seated, reading. Beside her, another is undressing, a ritual garment slipping from her shoulder. A satyr plays a lyre. A mask lies discarded. Each figure leans into the next, part of a procession not of time, but of transformation. A girl is whipped, not in cruelty, but in symbol. She turns her face away, eyes closed, mouth open. Pain and transcendence blur. Another figure dances, hair loose, arms raised, caught in ecstasy.
The fresco wraps the room like a circle. There is no beginning, no end, only motion suspended. I sit on a stone bench at the room's edge. The silence here is thick, not oppressive, but ceremonial. It feels like the moment just before a vow is spoken, or just after. The figures watch me, not with judgment, but with knowing. Their colors are vibrant still.
The red is dense. The shadows on their faces are rendered with delicate care. 2,000 years have passed, and yet they remain vivid, as if the ritual never ceased, only paused. The room smells of dust and stone, but also something older. A trace of wine, a ghost of incense, the suggestion of presence that clings to sacred space. I imagine the ceremony, the candles flickering, the chanting, the surrender. A girl crossing the threshold of self, becoming something more or something else. Outside this chamber, the rest of the villa lies quiet. Frescoes of landscapes, of birds, of still lifes. Rooms that once opened to gardens. A triclinium with views of Mount Vesuvius. Columns chipped by weather. A cellar still faintly cool. But this chamber, this frieze, holds the soul of the place. It is not history, it is myth incarnate. I rise slowly. The figures seem to shift in my periphery, not movement, but memory, as if the ritual continues behind closed eyes. Pompeii is full of echoes, but here, in the Villa of the Mysteries, the echo becomes a presence. Not sound, not vision, but certainty. That something sacred happened, that something sacred remains. I step into a garden that no longer grows. It lies beyond a low archway, where the plaster has flaked into a soft mosaic of beige and gray. The air is quieter here, as if even the birds have chosen not to sing. I cross the threshold, and immediately the light feels muted, filtered by time, by memory, by ash. This was once a viridarium, a private green space nestled in the center of a house, a sanctuary, a breath of wildness contained within walls. Now the outlines remain, a perimeter of faded soil, the fractured stubs of planters, a single twisted root pressing through a crack in the tiles. And above all, silence. The garden paths are still visible in places, worn patterns in the earth, arcs and angles traced by footsteps long gone. They lead toward a fountain in the center, its basin dry, its edges rimmed with a faint line of mineral white. I kneel beside it, brushing away a layer of ash with my fingers. Beneath it, the green shimmer of glass tesserae, arranged like lily pads. Even without water, the fountain listens. I rise and move along the edge. On the garden's far wall, a fresco survives. A painted grove, birds perched in branches, a deer bending to drink from a painted stream. The illusion is gentle, soft in tone, not a boast of nature, but a memory of it, a way to hold on to what might disappear. Here, Pompeii clung to green even as it faced stone. A column leans at an angle where vines once spiraled upward. Now only moss clings to its base. The leaves are gone, but the gesture remains. I pause at a fig tree,
not living but carved, its image etched shallow into a wall panel, decorative and devotional. Figs meant nourishment, shade, rest. The image preserves what the ash took. I sit on a low bench, its surface cracked and pale. The smell of dust rises as I move. Beneath the silence, I think I hear the ghost of wind through laurel. Gardens were not just beauty in Pompeii, they were structure, rhythm.
A soft place between the formality of architecture, a space for breath. In some homes, evidence of irrigation survives. Tiny clay pipes running beneath stone tiles, designed to carry water precisely to roots. Even the unseen was crafted with care. A terracotta pot lies broken near a threshold. Its shards have sunk into the earth, half covered by a layer of fallen plaster. I imagine what it once held. Rosemary, perhaps, or lavender. The kind of plant that carries scent long after its petals have gone. I pick up one shard. It's smooth on one side, rough on the other. A fragment of utility, of life. In another corner, the skeleton of a pergola lingers, just the holes in the stone where beams once anchored. I can almost see the shadow it cast at midday, the way it striped the tiles in a lattice of coolness. These were not grand gardens, not imperial. They were human, measured by hands and watered by daily ritual. I stand at the doorway again and look back. The ash has stilled everything, but it has also preserved the shape of peace. The garden is quiet, but not empty. Somewhere within its stillness, I feel the pause before a breeze, the hush before a bloom. Even the ash, soft as it is, does not smother. It cradles. Pompeii's gardens do not ask to be remembered. They remember you. And here in their quiet breath, I remember to be still. The breeze is slower now. As I cross one of the final streets, I notice even the shadows hesitate. They don't fall, they settle, long and pale, like veils draped across quiet stone. The houses around me feel suspended, caught in a gesture just before sleep. Doorways slightly ajar, window frames empty, staircases climbing into light. And still the structures hold their form, not crumbling, but waiting, as if the city had once inhaled deeply and never let the breath go. I come to a crossroads. 4 paths stretch before me, each worn smooth by centuries, all equally quiet, all equally touched by the same ash. I choose one without thought, or perhaps it chooses me. To my left, a bakery oven still stands. Its dome is intact, the inside blackened with a memory of fire. I place my hand near its mouth and imagine the warmth that once radiated from within. The scent of fresh bread, the soft rise of morning chatter, the creak of wooden trays sliding loaves into flame. Now, only silence. Only the echo of routine turned relic. I move forward. A small atrium welcomes me. The light filters in at a gentle angle, tracing patterns on cracked mosaic tiles. It pools in the center where the impluvium once held rainwater. Dry now, it reflects the golden air, like a mirror that forgot its reflection. Dust floats slowly in sunbeams, dancing in rhythms only the stillness knows. The city exhales memory, not loudly, but persistently. Each wall I pass hums with absence.
Each fallen beam rests like a closed eyelid. My steps begin to slow, not from exhaustion, but reverence. The pace here is different. There is no hurry. Even the air moves with purpose. Pompeii doesn't ask you to witness, it invites you to dissolve. A cracked doorway leads me into a modest room, perhaps once a study or a child's space. The walls are bare, but the corners speak. In the silence, I hear the soft scrape of a stylus, the whisper of fingers folding a cloth, a quiet breath before speaking a name.
Beneath my feet, fragments of floor mosaic form no discernible pattern, just scattered color. Red, black, ivory. But there's intention in the scatter, as if even brokenness has shape. Outside, the sky is turning, not dark yet, but dimmer, the afternoon leaning into its own silence. I sit at the edge of a threshold and watch light slide across stone. Nearby, a garden once bloomed. Now, ash has softened its borders. A single fig root curls through a crack, defiant. I press my hand to the soil, dry but not dead. Even here, something lingers. There is no voice left to explain the silence. But silence explains itself. Pompeii is not frozen in time. It moves slowly, like a thought revisited in dreams. I walk again past what remains of another home. On the wall, faint paint still clings to plaster, an outline of a bird in flight. Only wings, mid-beat, but enough. It reminds me that life once passed through here, that something always wanted to lift. And in that lifting, the city continues. I step into what might have been a storeroom. Empty shelves line the wall. Amphorae, broken at the neck, lean together like old friends. Dust gathers at their base. I run my finger across one. The mark I leave fades almost instantly. Pompeii erases gently, not with violence, but with softness. Farther on, I pass through an alley where the walls draw close. The space narrows, shadows gather. At the end, a sudden burst of light. A collapsed wall reveals a horizon. The mountain stands in the distance, still and vast, its shape too familiar, too quiet. I stop. In this moment, the city feels like it's breathing with me, slow, shallow, present. The wind brushes past, carrying a scent I can't quite name. Mineral, dry, ancient. Perhaps the scent of endings, or of what waits beyond endings. I lean against a column. It holds my weight effortlessly. Stone does not ask questions. Above me, a bird circles. Its cry is brief, then gone. The silence closes around it again. Seamless. In one final courtyard, I find a low bench beside a wall. I sit. The world narrows. Light, shadow, the quiet rhythm of my own breath. A leaf scrapes across the ground. The sound is soft, precise, almost deliberate. Here, even the small things feel like ceremony. Time begins to blur. The city no longer feels ancient. It feels immediate, as if I were not walking through history, but through something just departed. The warmth of a body after it leaves a chair.
the hush in a room after laughter fades. Pompeii is not empty. It is full of what was, full of what never had the chance to become, full of pauses. And so I pause. I close my eyes, letting the quiet settle fully. The breeze touches my cheek. The light shifts again, dimming further. The city wraps itself around me, not to keep, but to release. There is no need to understand Pompeii, only to witness, only to breathe with it, only to listen. I rise slowly, and for a long moment I do not move, because the city is still breathing, and I am breathing with it.
Now let it all grow quiet. You've wandered through silence made of stone, through mosaics that remember footsteps, through walls that have watched centuries pass in stillness. Pompeii has spoken, not in voice, but in texture, in weight, in breath. Let yourself settle now. The light is soft, the air is warm. Imagine the dust floating through a narrow shaft of sunlight, spiraling slowly, without rush. You are not standing in ruins. You are resting inside a memory. Ancient, yes, but still pulsing, still listening. Your body grows heavier gently, as if the stones beneath your feet have taken on your weight for you. Your breath deepens, matching the rhythm of the quiet city. Inhale, hold, exhale. Even now, the fountains dream of water. Even now, the frescoes blink behind closed lids. Even now, the gardens prepare for bloom. Nothing has ended, only slowed. Let that slowness take you. Your limbs soften, your thoughts dim. The last footstep echoes and fades. The amphitheater waits in the dark, its arches resting. The mountain sleeps, and so can you. No need to remember the details. The city will remember for you. Close your eyes. There is no need to hold on. You are already here. And Pompeii, in its gentle hush, will keep breathing beside you.